Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome. I'm glad you all are able to join for this evening. So I'll give everyone a chance to come on in and get settled. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear me. Everything's coming through okay. Also, go ahead and as you're getting settled, go ahead and put in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from or what year your students are. Tonight, we're going to be talking about summer activity planning and really making the most of this summertime and what that has to do with the college application process and why it's so important. And so knowing where you're tuning in from and also what year your students are is really helpful just to have that context as I'm giving different suggestions and talking about really how to make the most of each of your summers. So yeah, so just go ahead and put in the chat. Let me know what year your students are. If you're coming in from here in the Raleigh area, or if you are in a different part of the country, I'd love to know. And we will know a little bit about you. Awesome. Great. Yeah. So awesome. Great. It looks like everything is working perfectly. Great. So I am Gina from Advantage College Planning. If you are new, I like to hop on every couple weeks and share information about something related to the college planning process or application process that's really relevant to whatever time frame we are in throughout the year. And so now that we are in March, early spring, it's really a great time to start thinking about how to make the most of your summer break and so that your student can use that time to really help them grow as a person and then also ultimately help strengthen their college applications. So welcome. So great to have everybody here. Awesome. Summer jobs. Yes, we'll talk about those. All right, we've got a junior here. Perfect. Junior summer. Great. Last summer to close those gaps on their application. Perfect. So we're going to talk about all of that. So let's jump in and talk about why summer activities matter. So summertime, for our students are working really hard during the year. They're taking challenging classes. A lot of them are involved in extracurricular activities that take up a lot of their time. I know I'm always worried about how much my students are sleeping or not sleeping. So first and foremost, summer really should be a time for them to be able to relax and recharge and socialize and have all of those fun teenage experiences that they should be having that are developmentally appropriate for them at this age. But it's also a really great block of time where ideally, they don't have as much on their plate, right? They're not taking as many classes. Sometimes we'll get into this. Sometimes students do choose to take a class or two in the summer, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily the norm. So usually the coursework and the activities that are taking up the majority of students' time kind of goes away once we hit that summer break. And it's a really good 8 to 10 week block of time, this really solid time when students do have the ability to focus on something other than just getting through their academics. Summer is a really great time for students then to dive in and go a little bit deeper into activities that maybe they don't have the time to dedicate to during the school year. And so the reason that we're even talking about activities at all is because, again, the extracurricular activities that students are engaging in outside of the classroom is really where they're continuing to grow as a person, develop their character, work on those independent skills that we know that they're going to need to be successful when they get to college. But there is also a part of the college application process that is called the activity list if you're using the common application to apply, or if students are tuning in from California, right? The University of California system has a whole section on their application where students, again, are expected to list the activities that they've been meaningfully involved in throughout their time in high school. And so for students who are super busy and overscheduled, having a bit of time in the summer is a great opportunity to really expand what they're doing with those activities. Colleges use that activity list section to get an idea of who the student is, learn a little bit about their sense of their character, their personality, their interests. So this is really a great time to be able to show a college, when I'm able to have control over my schedule and I don't have to be sitting in a classroom 8 hours a day, here's what I choose to do. Here's how I choose to dedicate my time. So if we can be really intentional every summer throughout high school, so summer after 9th, summer after 10th, summer after 11th grade, then students have a great opportunity to build up a strong extracurricular profile. So let's talk about the different types of activities for students to consider. I know someone mentioned jobs. Yes, absolutely. A lot of times when I'm talking to students about what they're planning to do this summer, they tell me they don't really know too much, or they'll list maybe one or two things. And then I'll say, well, I thought, weren't you planning on working, or are you planning on continuing to work part-time at the place that you're currently working? And they'll say, oh, well, yeah, but that doesn't count. That absolutely counts, right? That counts as an activity. So part-time work is a really great, valid activity for students to list on their common applications for college. Having a part-time job shows colleges that a student has taken initiative, right? They had to go out and get that job. It's showing a high level of responsibility to someone who is not their parent. And depending on what their work is that they're doing, they have a whole host of other skills. A lot of my students, a lifeguard, they work at different stores or restaurants. All of these things require a certain level of responsibility, problem solving, conflict resolution, all of these really great skills that, again, are showing the college a bit about the student's character and maturity level as they're getting ready to potentially join that future college community. So part-time jobs definitely count as an activity. Another great thing to consider is volunteering. So, volunteering with your local church or place where you worship is really great. Volunteering with different community centers. One of the things I encourage my students to look at is, what is your town Parks and Rec department offering, right? What kinds of summer programs do they have for kids if you like to work with kids, or local YMCA groups? Often that's a great place to get a job too. Food pantries, organizations that are helping homeless individuals, right? All of those kinds of things constantly are organizations that have need for volunteers to come and help them with whatever their mission is. So that can be a great way to get involved. If your student's more of an outdoorsy kind of person, there are park cleanups. There are parks in this area that put together little like nature programs and things that people can come and pick up a backpack and go on a nature like scavenger hunt, right? All of that is run by volunteers. So it's really possible for a student to find some kind of volunteering in an area that they're somewhat interested in, right? So volunteering is really great. I mentioned taking classes. So sometimes students will choose to take a class either through a community college system, or maybe online through like a Coursera or edX, something that's not for credit, but just to expand their skills. So we'll talk more about that. Last but not least, sometimes students will do camps, right? So they'll lots of different organizations or colleges and universities offer summer programs on their campuses. Oh, and then actually, last but not least would be homegrown projects. Don't want to forget about those. So that would be something that's a project that your student just is really into and wants to pursue on their own to learn more about an area or improve on a specific skill or a goal that they have. So these are all, just to get us started, kind of broad examples of all the different types of things that count as a summer activity. So as we're going through and we're thinking more about this for you and for your student, these are the types of activities I want you to keep in mind and be open to. So when I'm talking with my students about planning out their summer, I think about it in like three different categories. So are we using the summer to explore, right? Like maybe you have no idea what you want to do, you have no idea what you're interested in. And so this is going to be a summer to just explore and learn more about what's out there. Again, grow as a person, increase your independence. Maybe this is a summer to expand. So you've started to kind of develop an interest in something and now we want to expand that interest. Or is this a summer to enhance? Are we now working to enhance your college application, right? So we have explore, expand, enhance. So let's talk about those three different categories. Using the summer to explore is great if you have a student who has no idea what they want to major in, they have no idea, what their future goals are. Oftentimes these are younger students. They haven't found their passion yet. And so that's totally fine. There is no pressure on that, right? So then let's use the summer as an opportunity to just try something new. Anything. You never really know what can click for a student if they aren't having any different opportunities to engage in different settings or with different people. And so this could be, this is like basic exposure, because this exposure could really show them something that they like or something that they don't like, which is just as valuable. They could walk away from the experience saying, well, I never want to do that again. Okay, well, that's great. Good. Now we know that that's not an industry or a path that you want to pursue, but let's talk about why. So different types of opportunities that you can consider for exploring. The general volunteering I was talking about, that's a great way to start, right? Just pick a cause and go with it. Any kind of volunteering. And there's some volunteering that is going to require more of a long-term commitment. So some of the local hospitals, for example, have an application process, and students can, if they're selected through that process, could volunteer throughout the summer, and they would go consistently every week at a certain time for the whole summer and volunteer in some capacity at the hospital. That's a great opportunity for students who are interested in healthcare, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for students who are interested in healthcare, because they're doing all different types of jobs around the hospital. So that would be that's one opportunity. But if you maybe need some more flexibility, I have a lot of students whose families plan to travel in the summer, right? Because you have that big time off. That's great. So then let's look for something with more flexibility. That's where volunteering at food banks or places that take in donations that have to be sorted, whether that's food or clothing or hygiene products, whatever that is for different individuals that are going to receive those products. Those places need somebody just to help organize. Those places are usually happy to have people, even just for a one-off. And so your student could go and do that once, see how they feel about it, or maybe sign up, a few times over the summer, go back and do different roles and just see what that experience is like. Maybe that's not going to lead them to their future career, but at the very least, it's going to give them some hands-on experience where, again, they have to be responsible to someone other than their parent. They probably are going to have to work in a team, take direction. Again, maybe there might be some conflict they have to resolve. All of these are really great qualities and experiences that are helping our students grow. So that type of volunteering can be really good. Getting a part-time job also can be a great experience for these students. There are some places that will hire students as young as 14 or 15. So you just have to kind of check around, see what the age limits are depending on the age of your student. But again, this doesn't have to be what your student's going to do for the rest of their life, but it starts to give them a little bit of a sense of an industry or just some type of work experience. Some students too might want to attend a camp. Right. So one example could be, attending some kind of summer camp, right? Maybe they're a younger student and they just want to go and do a week away at camp. That's totally fine. That's great. That's independence building, having time away from their family, having to manage those feelings and kind of dealing with things on their own. So all of those could be great examples of opportunities just to explore. We're just trying to get out of the house and do something different. That's the goal. Once we've had an opportunity to explore, now the next summer, we're going to expand. So this is where we're going to now reflect back on experiences the student has had throughout the year, maybe experiences they had last summer. And now let's see, is there anything that you did that we can kind of take to the next level or go a little bit deeper or increase your role in any way? So let's think about the example of a student who goes to summer camp, right? Maybe the next step for that student is becoming a counselor in training at that summer camp. So they're not quite a counselor yet, but they're taking on a bit more responsibility, but still getting the fun of being a camper, and see how they feel about that type of experience. Sometimes students start at this point getting interested in maybe a broad area. Maybe they're starting to have a career interest. This is a great time to start thinking about your network. So who do you know? Thinking about your friends, thinking about your family, your neighbors, your child's friends, parents, right? Who is in your network, who in any way works in a field related to what your student might be interested in? Is there someone who'd be willing to sit down with your student, right? We can brainstorm. If you're working with us, we can brainstorm a list of questions, or you can work with your student and brainstorm a list of questions that you could ask for this person or the multiple people, right? To learn a little bit more about, well, what is it like to work in this type of industry? How did you get there, right? What did you major in? What jobs did you have along the way? What advice do you have for me as a high school student who might be interested in learning more about that? That's a great way to start to learn more about a specific path. This could also be a really good time to, potentially I'm thinking, okay, you might be like a sophomore at this point. So this could also be a good time to think about visiting college campuses. right? Summer after sophomore year, a summer visit is going to be super low stakes, won't be a lot going on the campus, but just a chance to start to see some different colleges. It could also be a good time to start looking at college websites and saying, okay, if you think you're interested in this as a major or as a career, what would the major be? Okay, let's look at that major. These are the classes that you would take if you were going to pursue this major. Do those look interesting? Right? Those are also casually something that you can do over the summer. This is also something we do with our students when we're working with them. Thinking about classes. So again, sometimes students might take a class at the local community college, or they might do an online course for free or for not for credit. I see this a lot with students who are interested in different types of coding languages. There's a lot of students who will choose to take Python or Java or C++ classes just to start to get a little bit of exposure to those languages, just to increase their skill set and what they're able to do and build, from a coding perspective. That could be a great example. So those types of things would be really good. If your student, let's say, got a job, right? So let's say after that first summer, they got a part-time job. Maybe the second summer, they could look to see if there's any other area they could be trained in, right? Maybe they've been working as a bagger for the last 6 months at the grocery store, and they could look to see, well, what would it take for me to become a stocker, right? Or to work on the cash register. Just start to look to see what other opportunities are there for me to take on different responsibilities. And if your student, let's say they were volunteering that first summer, so then, okay, if we're expanding, then the next summer, let's see, the first summer they were doing a little bit of volunteering. Okay, so the second summer, maybe they would see it like increase their hours a little bit, right? And look to see if there was another way that they could contribute a little bit more significantly. So let's say your student was volunteering with a food pantry, and they were going, once a week for a couple of hours to help organize some of the donations that were coming in. Maybe the second summer they increase their hours, they're going more often, or maybe they do something to kind of do a food drive within their neighborhood, right? Maybe they just say, hey, the food pantry I know is getting low on hygiene items, and I want to do a drive in our neighborhood to try to get some more items to bring in to the food pantry, right? So that would be taking something that they've been doing, and now we're just kind of, going a little bit deeper. We're enhancing it. We're having a little bit more of a personal impact. So now we're expanding. Now the third summer, so now I'm kind of thinking, all right, summer after junior year, this is really now when we want to start enhancing. Sometimes by this point, students do have a clear idea of what it is that they might want to actually pursue in college. And sometimes they don't, and that is okay. That is not at all a problem, and that will not necessarily hold them back from anything. But if they have started to develop an interest or a specific major, then now's a good time to fill those gaps. And so what I mean by that is, if your student has a specific major that they want to apply for, especially if it's a more selective major, depending on the school that they're applying to, like engineering, or if it's something really specific, like something in the medical field or nursing, the colleges are going to be looking to see if the student has had any kind of activity outside of their coursework, because of course they'll look at their coursework, but any kind of activity related to this major. Does the student really have an idea of what they are getting into by putting down that they want to, go into nursing or something in medicine or engineering or anything like that? And so obviously, if you're putting down that you're interested in nursing, you probably don't have firsthand experience as a nurse, right? There's laws about that. But, they'll be looking for, well, what kind of experience do you have working with other people? Right? What kind of opportunity have you had to develop any type of empathy? Well, that's where maybe volunteering at, a food pantry and interacting maybe with the people who are coming to shop and pick up groceries there. That is a way to show that, right? So looking for different opportunities that you can pursue that are related somehow, to show some initiative, to show some intellectual curiosity, that you are really trying to learn more about this field that you're saying you're interested in, is really important. And so that can come from volunteering, that can come from these interviews, that also can come from job shadowing. So especially obviously if you're interested in something in the medical field, you're not going to get a part-time job typically, getting hands-on in those fields. But Sometimes, you might be, again, if you think about your network, if you think about your providers, you might be able to make a connection with someone who would allow you to come and shadow them for a day or shadow some aspect of their work. That can be really valuable. And again, doing any kind of interviewing to learn more about what actually goes into doing this type of work day to day can be really valuable. That's an activity that a student certainly can list. So we want to fill those holes. We want to think about that personal impact now at this point, right? So if we're thinking about the student who was volunteering that first year, they're at the food pantry sorting the cans. The second year, maybe they did a food drive in their neighborhood that was somewhat successful. They brought in a few bags of personal toiletry items. That's awesome. So maybe this next final year, they take on a bigger project, whether that's, helping with, maybe they see something needs to be reorganized and they decide to head that project on, or maybe they see that there's another level of need of items that maybe the place has never given out before, and they take on the lead of running, a town-wide drive to collect those items, right? The sky's really the limit here. So think about what's important to your student, how can they contribute in a way that's really meaningful, that's taking something that they've done the previous year, and now let's see if we can have a little bit bigger of an impact. For the student who was at the camp, right? So maybe they were a camp attendee, and then the second year they're a CIT, and maybe now this third year they become a camp counselor, and they love that, and they work the whole summer at the summer camp, and they're a camp counselor, and they're responsible for all these kids, right? That's a great experience, especially for a student who loves kids and loves the summer camp type of vibe. So that could be really good. If your student has a part-time job and they've been working for the last couple of years, this could be a really great time, again, for them to see, is there an opportunity for me to level up? Talk with the managers, talk with the supervisors, right? Start getting used to asking for that feedback. What do I need to do to get promoted, or what other opportunities are there for me? I have some students who, by the time they're at this point going into senior year, they're training other new hires. That's a huge responsibility. And that shows, again, so much maturity. That shows how much trust their employer has in them to, do a good job and set a good example for other people. I've also had students who are key holders for the part-time job places that they work, which is crazy to me. But how significant is that to put on your application, that as a 17-year-old, you're a key holder for whatever company that you work for? That's pretty cool. So even though it's a part-time job and maybe they're working in a grocery store, or they're working in a restaurant or a fast food kind of place, and maybe this isn't exactly what they plan to do for their career, the opportunity for growth and to really show so much about their character is there if they pursue those opportunities. And again, think about it really strategically, going from, just the exploring to the expanding to the enhancing each summer. The other thing that we talk with all of our students about is the importance of reading over the summer. So we really encourage all of our students to read a book, any book. I don't care what the book is. It does not have to be something that's, academically significant. It does not need to be some great work of literature. The most important thing is that they're reading. So number one, we know obviously that the more students read, the stronger their vocabulary will be, it'll improve their writing skills. But from a college admissions, college application standpoint, we've also started to see a few more colleges, a bit of an uptick in those supplemental essays, asking questions related to a reading experience. So, for example, tell us about a book that you've read that has changed your perspective on the world or helped you better understand the world's complexities, right? That's an actual prompt. Or tell us about a book that you read as you were entering high school that really impacted you during that time in your life. And again, really, helped you understand the world in a more complete way, right? So it doesn't really matter what the book is, but you have to have something to talk about. And some of the applications actually will ask the student, was the book that you're talking about required reading for school? So it's really great if the student has something that they can pull from that wasn't just one of their required reading assignments. So read a book. This is also a really great way, if we're going back to ways to explore or expand, right? Kind of these two categories. Reading a book can 100% fall in these categories. So if you have a student who, let's say, is interested in something medical related, there are so many really interesting memoirs and autobiographies of people who've worked in the medical industry dealing with, from all these different topics, right? ER doctors talking about the opioid crisis in America, doctors talking about, pandemics, doctors talking about what it's like a Doctors Without Borders kind of thing, and working in other countries outside of the US and the difference in the medical system. There are books about our health insurance system and the impact that has on greater health in our country. So that's one example from a nonfiction perspective. Again, or a student could read something completely fiction, but again, somewhat related to what it is that they're interested in potentially pursuing, in terms of a major. So that's a great way to explore as well. But the bottom line is, please read something, read a book, any reading counts. So the bottom line, the main thing I hope that you take away is that the more intentional, again, you can be throughout this process. I always talk about being intentional, but if you can be intentional about the summers, then by the end of each summer, your student ideally will have at least one new activity that is going to strengthen their resume and strengthen their college applications, but will also have had experiences that are helping to further develop their character, helping to further develop their skills of independence, and those qualities that they're going to need when they're 18 or 18 and a half and moving out of your house, potentially across the country. So this is a great time to give them that freedom with a little bit of support to learn a little bit more about who they are, expand their skill set a little bit, and make those steps towards independence while also learning a little bit about what could be something that they want to study in the future. So I'm going to open it up now for questions and answers. So you can go ahead and put those in the chat. While that is up, I will also let you know, okay, here. So April 7th, I will be back at 8 o'clock. My colleague Ariel will be joining me, which I'm really excited about. And so we're going to be talking about the college admissions process beyond GPA. You all know that grades are important. Everyone knows grades are important. But what else, right? How are colleges really looking at applications, and what else really matters? And what can students be doing to help strengthen their application? So I'll be back on the 7th to talk about that. So definitely tune in for that. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. And if not, if you got all the information you need, then that's even better. If you found this helpful, again, I'm back usually about every 2 weeks with content related to something with the college application process that's timely. And then we also have a lot of really great resources on our website, advcp.com. You'll find our blog, links to our podcast, videos, and there's also an opportunity on there to schedule a consultation if you'd like to talk with us about potentially working together with your student during this really exciting time. So thanks so much for joining me tonight. I hope you all have a great rest of your St. Patrick's Day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.